Okay, so we're going to start dimensioning our 10391 drawing. And for the most part, we're going to use the PowerPoint rules that we talked about last week. So if we look at our drawing, we're just going to start here in the middle. We have our 4 inches and our 3 inches. However, remember how the rule was you want to try to dimension on adjacent drawings. So this 3 inches, we're actually going to move over here. And if you take a look at this, what that does is that actually prevents us from having to cross dimension lines here and cross dimension lines there. So it actually does make this drawing a little bit cleaner. So let's just go ahead and get started. So come over to our drawing, and we can use the dimension tool up here. We want to make sure we're in escape and start over. Make sure we're in our dimension layer. And just a reminder, this def points, this is not a layer that you create. This is a layer that will appear once you start adding dimensions. So once you start adding dimensions, it will appear. It's used by AutoCAD to store background information. There's nothing you need to do about it. I believe once it appears, you can never actually delete it. Anyway, always make sure you choose your dimension layer. If you do it in your center layer, you can't actually tell that you're in your center layer because they'll still look the same color, so make sure it's dimension layer. Excuse me, actually you will be able to tell that you're in your center layer because your lines will be dashed. You'll have the short and long dashes instead of the solid lines. So you do want to be in your dimension layer. Okay, so if we choose this dimension, we need to make sure that we choose the right point. And we need to choose our outside edges. And then we just pull it up a reasonable amount. In fact, let's go down. Let's do all our rectangular dimensions before we start putting leaders in. Now you can use this dimension. You can also use this one. There really isn't a fundamental difference. Come over here. Now here I'm going to pull this one a little farther down because I know we're going to add additional dimensions. There are 2.1 inches. We come over here. Pull that one out. I'm going to come back to my drawing, just take a quick look and see what we have here. So we have this 0.9 inches to the center of, or 0.990 to the center of this hole. You also see we have this center line, it actually goes to the center of this hole as well. So let's go over to there and take a look at this. And if we come up here, we haven't put center marks in yet, so let's go ahead and do that. And I think we are set up for center lines, but we'll find out in a second. So before we do that, we need to go back to center mark, see if we have marks or lines. Looks like we have lines, which are fine. And then we're actually going to just go ahead and make a line between these two, because that's actually going to be used for dimensioning. Excuse me. We're then going to go ahead and let's put center instead of center lines. Actually, I think we can put center lines here. Let's see. Okay, let's look at their drawing real quick and see what they did here. In the drawing, they put in center lines. They have center lines. Yeah, so let's put in center lines there as well. Let's come back here. So, and if you notice, some of these will already have center lines or center marks. So you can go ahead and just add them in if you need to, if they're already done. I didn't go ahead and necessarily delete all the center lines or center marks in this drawing. And then because we know that these are at the same height and those are at the same height, we look back at our drawing and you see that they're combined together. So we need to connect them or draw a line between them. And here we can just use the center line drawing, our center line, and draw a center line from one side to the other. And then again over here we draw a center line from one side to the other. Okay, so now we're ready to start dimensioning. So we can start dimensioning, choose our linear dimension, and we actually can dimension right from here. We don't have to choose, and we probably shouldn't necessarily choose the center. We can dimension right from the extension on the end here. And just pull that out like that. And when we do that, we'll actually get a space here. If we do it from the center, then we're going to start overlapping these center lines, and we'll get less of these dashes and dots. So we are better off to do it this way. Okay, so now we're going to need some more room at the top here, so we'll slide that down. And let's do this 1-inch dimension here. And take note, I made a mistake. I've started drawing this in the center line, so I need to change these. So I'm going to select both of these. I need to go to my quick properties. And it may not let me do it in quick properties, or I may have to change them one at a time. Or I may have to actually delete it. No, here we go. In properties, change the layer to our dimension layer. And again, it doesn't look any different, but it matters if you go to print it and you're only printing certain portions of the drawing. That's quick properties. We want to go to properties and change it to our dimension layer. Okay, so those are back. We need to go ahead and select our dimension layer. Now let's continue with dimensions. So here we can go and continue with dimensions. So now we want to dimension from here to there. And when we do that, we should make them exactly so that they line up on top of each other. You don't want to see double arrows next to each other. And in fact, they didn't do that here, you can see. But it's far better. It's far better to do it this way. It's a much cleaner drawing. Okay, so now let's come down and do the ones on the bottom here. So we can select here and there, and then bring them down. .620, and then we need to do the ones. We need to do one of these in the center. And now here, however, this gets confusing. So we don't want to do this. Here we absolutely need to shift the dimensions up like that. And then we can do the same thing on the other side. We select here and there and pull the dimension down. And here we want to try to be at the exact same height. I wouldn't go so far as to actually move it to make it the same height, but you actually can if you want to. But it's not necessarily required. I am going to do this from the other side so that the 0.310 comes in on the other side. So I'll start in the center here. Start in the center and go to this side. And I'll get my 310 here. And we can do it just like that. Come back up to our drawing, and we need to do the same thing on the sides here. Grab a dimension. Now, it's up to you whether to do the outside or the inside dimension first. Sometimes actually doing the inside dimension first can be more helpful. And the reason I say that is when you do the inside dimension, although certainly in this case, if you know, you can take a look at it and say, hey, the inside dimension, this is going to conflict when I do the outside dimension. So I don't want to do it this way. I want to come back and click here first. Then click there. And now this is on the wrong side. But that's okay because I can take this. If I click on that point. If I click only. Let's see. We only want to move this guy. We don't want to move the whole dimension. Figure out exactly how to move these sometimes can be a little trick. And I'm going to delete that. I'm going to do the outside first and see how it changes. If we do the outside first, we get the 0.620. We can see, here we are, we have rotate, horizontal, vertical. So we could make it, specify the dimension line or location. Although this one is actually okay. So let's put this in like that. And then if we can put the other one in by clicking, let's say up here and then there, and we can put the other one in like this. If it doesn't let us move that up, let's see what this looks like over here. We have these two we have it in between. So let's see how we can modify these. Here we go, move text only. So once you select, you can right click so when you click on this and then say move text only, now I'm actually moving the text. So what we could do here is if we start, let's see, with the top, I guess we start with the bottom. Start with the bottom, move to the top. There we go. We can put it in something like that. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's just confirm we're not what we're missing or what we don't have. So we have all the vertical and the horizontal dimensions. Let's come back down here and put these whole dimension locations in, and then we'll go and work on the angles after we get the whole locations here. We'll come down here. And let's just confirm we want to reference off of this corner. We choose our dimension. And again, reminder, we're generally clicking, as I said, on the outside line of the center line, and then we don't come over here and click on the edge of the part. We come down and click on the corner, and that gives us a spacing. So that gives us a spacing here, so the line is not overrunning. And then we can come over here and do the same thing for the Y. So we click there, and we click here. Oh, sorry, I chose line instead of dimension. So we click here, we click here, and we pull that out. Now, if you remember, I talked on Wednesday about the fact that we needed to reference this hole from this edge, and then this hole from this edge, to make sure they're both referenced from the same edge. But it doesn't fundamentally matter if this dimension, this 1.078, gets referenced from here, if we put that over here versus over here, because that's actually the same edge. If we put it over here, it's referenced from this bottom edge, but if we put it over here, it's also referenced from the bottom edge. There's no difference. Sorry about that, guys. I got interrupted by a knock on the door, and I don't have a pause button on my software. Okay, so let's come over here. So now we come back over here. Oh, and by the way, I actually should point this out. Instead of coming back up to dimension, you can also just simply right click, and this is for any AutoCAD command. I probably should have talked about this a while ago. You can right click and then just choose repeat command. So because I made a linear dimension, I can repeat that linear dimension. So I can come over here now and click. Let's see, where do I want to put this one? I think I want to put this one. Well, actually, because I hit escape, well, I can still repeat linear. I think I want to put this one over here and there. I can do that, and then again, I can right-click, repeat linear, click here, and then click here, and then pull that down. And again, remember, the inner dimension should always be closer so that these lines are not overlapping. Just want to go back and check that dimension. It is 1.553. Okay, that's good. So now let's come back to the bottom here. Remember, we talked about violating that rule that says don't dimension hidden lines over here, because we feel it's better to dimension the hidden line there than to actually dimension over here. Because when we dimension over here, what we have to do, or what we would have to do, is we'd have to dimension like that. and we're crossing the drawing. So it's a little bit cleaner if we dimension it down here. If we don't do this, then we could dimension it, say, from here, but then it's not necessarily clear that we mean it's that dimension. And again, finally, this whole dimension is a reference dimension. It's not something the machinist is actually cutting. So it becomes a little bit less of an issue. So now that we have this dimension, we can click on it, and let's see, we can modify. We can go to properties. We actually could just right click in properties. Actually, we don't really, well, yeah, remember we actually talked about this. We could do a text edit. And here it's probably okay because this is not a dimension that is machined, where we could change this 0.125 and just type ref next to it. It wouldn't be so bad. However, it's probably best if we just put in some unattached text. So we just put in a single line of text. We come over here, specify the start point of the text. Now what does it want? Specify the text height. So the text height, I believe we said the height here was 0.18. Text rotation angle is 0, and then we want to enter the text. So the text here is just ref. And you don't hit enter to actually end. You just do something else basically. So if I just hit my mouse button somewhere else, that finishes it. And then if I click on this, I can move it and align it a little bit better so it actually looks like it's part of this drawing. Okay, so that takes care of that. Now we want to locate the height of all of these other holes, and let's just look and see how they did it here. So here they pulled out the 0.614 in this direction. I'm going to pull it out on this side. The reason I'm going to pull it out on this side because it'll make it a little bit cleaner. As you notice, we have an awful lot going on over there. So by pulling it out over here, it'll make it a little bit easier to read. So we go to our dimension, and we click here, we click there, and we pull that out like so. And then we can do these basically in their order. Now notice this doesn't have a center line yet. So let's go ahead and, or I actually erased the center line. So let's put the center line in. Remember I need to go back to my center dimension, excuse me, my center layer before I do that. Let's put the center line on that one, and the center, and the center line on that one. So now we can go back in dimension, and we can choose that center line and here, and then pull down. Two, 5, 1, 3. And let's just go back and take a... Oh, sorry. Right, that's on a bolt circle. So we don't actually have to enter that one. And because of that, we don't... You could argue we don't need the center mark. Or the center line. So let's just delete that. The center lines in some cases can add confusion. So I am going to actually delete them here. And not put them in for those two holes. And that's because we have so much going on. It's a little busy there. So I'm going to dimension this 2.925, and I'm going to confirm the dimension 2.925, and then the other hole is 3.175. Now, here's something we can do in order to make this a bit cleaner. We can take this 0.25 ref move it down here, take this point 2.925 and move it to the top, and you'll see how the drawing is going to look a little bit cleaner. But I didn't want to do that. I want to delete this one, but this one I want to just move. And actually, the way I want to do this is I want to take this, and I want to go to modify mirror, and I want to mirror off of this point, and then erase source objects, yes. Enter. I guess for what I'm doing, it's not really worth it. I'm just going to delete it. We're going to make a new dimension here, and come down here, make the new 0.125, move our ref down. Sometimes you can try to be fancy and it's helpful, and then other times it's just not worth the effort. So if we move the 1.125 down here, what you're going to see is that when we dimension this 2.925 and this 3.175, what it does is it clears out some of the lines that are running through here. And by doing that, it ultimately makes this drawing cleaner. So let's go back here. Now what we're missing is the height over here, which we can do, and again, for cleanliness, I'm going to bring this out. And now I'm going to show you how to move dimensions around. So obviously we don't want to do this. In fact, we want these reversed. So for now, I'm going to move this out here, and then I'm going to take this guy and slide him in, and then we can take this one and move it back like that. And then if we want, I'm just going to slide this text down just a little bit. And I lost my line, which is a little bit interesting. I'm not really sure why that happened. Alright, so there, this, when I don't do the move text only, the line at least follows. So I'm going to pull that down enough to give it some separation. And then if I need to, I can move this up or down for clarity. I'm going to actually move that out a little bit. And again, in some of these cases, I may be going a little bit too extreme, but I'm just showing you what you can do to make your drawing cleaner. Now, I'm doing this because of what we saw the other day as we were drawing this. You could see that it was very crowded in this area. And because of that, it was difficult to, and even in this drawing, it's difficult to follow some of these dimension lines. So let's go through now and actually work on this and finish this up. So let's go to our center layer and put in a center line. And I'm surprised that's solid. I just want to check my center line. Nope, it is a center too. Okay. Put in a center line through that hole. And then put another center line at 5 degrees. And for this one, I'm going to come down here. Make sure we're set for an angle of 5 degrees. And I do need to expand this. And I'm going to bring this all the way out to here. And then I'm going to take this line and expand that out to here as well. So now to do the angle dimension, we use this tool. And we can simply click here. And I guess we can't actually click on a dimension line, I guess. But we can click on a center line. So we can do that. And we bring that out to there. And we can see we have our 30 degrees. And that's okay right there, as it is. Over here, we can do it in a similar manner. As we choose our angular dimension, we click here, and click there, and we're doing the line the wrong way. Let's delete that. It was there and then it disappeared. Let's try that one more time. So we can click here. Did it to me again. I don't understand that. Alright, so we can just pull it out farther. And if you want, we can pull it all the way out to here. Now, if we click on this, and click on this point here, and here you can see we can move with dimension line. We get a lot of choices here for what we can do. We can sort of see, it sort of shows us in some cases what will happen as we move it. Well, we can move it with the leader, move it with the dimension line, above the dimension line. I'm not above the dimension line. Might move it to the top. No, moves it up there. And we can decide what we like. I'm not sure I like that one, but I think I liked the one before. You know, ultimately, there's not really a right and a wrong. It just has to be so that it's readable and understandable. Okay, so now that we have the two angles in, what else do we need to add here? Let's take a look at... Oh, I'm clicking the wrong point. Let's take a look at our drawing. Well, we need to add the 0.375 through hole and the 0.951 bolt circle. So let's go ahead and do that. And I might have put these dimensions in on the center layer. That seems to be something I am quite capable of doing. So, if you think you might have done that, and this is okay, I have them both selected. Now it says layer various because one is on the center layer, one isn't. That's okay because I want them both on the dimension layer. So I'll just choose the dimension layer, like that. Now they'll be on both on the dimension layer. Now you can go back to the dimension layer. So if you are worried that you might have, let's say, done a lot of these dimensions like that, I think I've caught all the ones that I've done. Again, I still have to put more. But what you can do is you can actually turn off your dimension layer. Oh, and I must have turned off my layer 0. Yeah, I did. And check to make sure you don't have any dimensions. If you see dimensions, then they're on the wrong layer. Alright, let's put my dimension layer back on. And the way these layers work is when you turn the layer on, nothing shows up until you come back to your drawing. So if you notice, my layer's on, but I don't see my dimensions yet. When I come back here and click, I see my dimensions. Okay, so here I am back in my drawing. We have this 0.375 bolt circle. Now, for whatever reason, I find this leader up here to be relatively complicated. And I generally almost always use the diameter one. So I just click here, bring this out like that. In the same way, come out here, click on that, bring this out. Now we generally try to make these reasonably organized so that they look nice. And if you look at this, they're coming out white. I did it again. I'm just going to delete because these are relatively easy to put back, and they'll give you another chance to see it. Plus, I think I wanted to change where these go. I'm going to put this one over here, 0.951, and then this one right here, 0.375. And then I can add the text here. Text height 0.18, text rotation 0, capital BC, to say that that's a bolt circle. and then if I need to, I can move this. Try to align it a little better. Sometimes it can be a pain to align it. It's one area, if you're doing a lot of text and you really need it to align well, then you can go back to a grid. The 0.375 through the through should actually be there, so we should go ahead and put that there. So we're going to come back over here, and we're going to go to, again, single line text. Click here, 0.180 THRU. Enter. No enter, just space. And there, I guess if we put a space in first, it would have been a little better. But we click and then just shift it over. Oop. Like that. We need to reference these two holes. So we need to bring out another leader. We have the 0.112. And bring out this one and put that right next to it. 0.138. And then the text here, 0.138-32 UNC-2B through. What does this mean? This is basically telling you that it's a number 6 32. The 32 is 32 threads per inch. UNC is the type of UNC-2B is the type of tap. Through, by now you should understand, is a through hole. And then the 0.112-40, that's a standard 440 hole. Again, UNC-2B is the type of hole. Again, it's through, and then there are two places. So we go ahead and enter that text. All right, so 0.112. Enter. Angle of text 0. Text. So 112-40 space UNC-2B base 2PL. Let me just make sure we got that right. And then through. Although this text actually goes for the 112, but that's okay, because we can just come down, select it, and just move it down here. And what we actually can do is we can actually copy this and move it over here. And we actually use it up here, so I'm going to put a copy up there and just leave it there for now. We'll get to it in a minute. But this this is actually obviously not correct. but we can just change this to a -32 and then take out the 2PL, and now we have it correct over here. Alright, so now we're just let's just take a quick look at this versus this. So you can see here we have a bunch of cross lines. We have a bunch of arrows that kind of look not all that great. We still have a bunch of arrows because we can't avoid our arrows, and they're not at the best of angles, but our text lines up a little bit better. It's actually it's a little bit difficult to get these two pieces of text to line up unless we bring them way out here somewhere. Probably have to bring them down here if we wanted them to line up, but the drawing over here is a little bit cleaner, so I like that. Let's continue on. So we have to add the radius over here, the 0.090, I believe, and yeah, R 0.09 4 places. Let's go ahead and do that. So here we want here we can just bring out a leader, and we just want a straight leader. Create a multi-leader object. No, we just want a leader like this. We click here, select the arc. Notice it's done for you. This is very nice. We just bring out our line, and then we can just add some text. Single line text, and I'm actually going to put this underneath. Let's make it 0.2 inches under. For PL, and it looks like we should have moved that down a little bit. Move it down another 0.1. Close enough. Okay, so we got that done. We have this hole diameter we need to put in there, bring it out, and then remember we said here that we had an additional notation that this hole could be 5.5 millimeters. So we're going to go ahead and write 5.5 millimeters. And again, just a reminder, we're giving the machinist the option to put in a 0.218 inch hole or a 5.5 millimeter hole. And this is really for drill size selection. 5.5 millimeters is actually a little bit smaller than 0.218. 5.5 millimeters comes out to something like 0.21675 or something approximately that size. Okay, so now we come over here to this hole, and we bring out another diameter. We click on the edge. Oop, I'm still in text mode. Get out of text mode. Click on the edge, and we bring out our 0.0157. I'm just gonna. We need to add the through for the holes. Now to add the through for the holes, one of the things we can do is we can come down here, grab the through, choose modify, copy. Now when you select the base point though, well, you got to make sure you select the base point in the right area, so we're going to choose it right at through, and then from there start placing it where you need it. So you can place it there. Okay, so here we have a bit of an we have a bit of an issue, but let's just put it there for now. And then I know we're going to need some up above. So I think we have one for here already. Actually, we have one for this one. We don't have one for there, so we'll need one up above. So let's go ahead and just leave another one up there. And that's one thing to remember. You can always use copy and paste and kind of leave things for yourself. Okay, so we need to correct this. We need to add the through here. How do you do that? Well, we can't go and change this text, but we can move this. And we can move this in such a way that we only want to move the text. Let me see if this works. Now, we didn't want to do it that way. AutoCAD does behave a little bit strange sometimes when you move things. Okay, so let's see here. Move with dimension line, above dimension line. Let me put it above the dimension line. If I put it above the dimension line, then I can move, put that back. If I put it above the dimension line, then I can move this over to here, like that. Although I think I need a little bit more room here. So I'll just stretch it out a hair. About like that. And then we'll move this. We'll move this in like so. And then we can move this over here. So some of you have probably done this already, and you realize that there are some little quirks to the way AutoCAD operates. And you just have to sort of play around with them and figure them out. Now, to do these holes, I'm just basically looking around and looking at the best way to put them in. And I think if I stretch this out a little bit, if I move this out here, then I can pull one of the diameters out from here. Alright, so here's the thing. If I do this, I have to cross two dimension lines. However, if I do this, I only have to cross one. So it's preferred to do that. And there really isn't, is there a way? Yeah, there is a way to avoid it if I pull it out on the bottom. And actually, I think that's what they did in the drawing, if I remember right. Yeah, you see here on the bottom, they pulled it out on the bottom. So let's do that. So we pull it out on the bottom. We move this down. And then we actually have to edit this, right? Because we don't have 2 holes, we have 4 holes. And then finally, we simply need to get this diameter, this 0.688, and then we have a through, and then along with this we need to add that through hole is in 2 places. Okay, so I believe this is done. The one thing we did not do is we did not put in the extra notes. So there are a couple of notes here. Break all sharp edges, remove all burrs. We could add that. And then there's a note, all outer surfaces should be brushed. So what does that mean? Just to let you know, all outer surfaces should be brushed. That means that the surfaces should actually be essentially edge sanded so that the grain looks the same on all edges, all surfaces. And then finally this note here, this is saying that all the edges here should be parallel to within 5 mils. And that's a tolerance on the cutting. So not only is there a tolerance on this 2.100 inches, but there's also a tolerance on the parallelism of that tolerance. And let's see, final. This radius, 0.09. I believe if we look at the drawing, it's 0.090. So this is one where legitimately you may want to. I think we can just change the precision on this for this one particular dimension. And let's go look at it. Yeah. So here's the precision. So on this particular dimension, we change the precision to 0.00. And now we have the 0.09 instead of the 0.090. And again, just a reminder, as I mentioned a couple of times, the higher your precision, the higher your costs. So that's it. Now we haven't yet talked about the drawing template and that essentially that sheet that this drawing goes on. And we're going to do that. We're going to do that very soon. We'll probably get into that next week. So make sure you save your drawing. Once your drawing is fully dimensioned, you can go ahead and hand it in.